I do appreciate and feel very blessed that I was born into a family with rich Cherokee history and culture and language, and I've been exposed to all of that all of my life.
OCO, and welcome back to our Cherokee family. My name is Krystan Moser, and I am the Senior Manager of Collections and Exhibits for Cherokee Nation Cultural Tourism. Today we're going to be exploring the genealogy of Cherokee Nation Delegate to Congress, Kimberly Teehee.
Thank you, Krystan. I'm so excited to be here. As Krystan mentioned, I'm Kimberly Teehee, and I serve as Cherokee Nation's Delegate to Congress. Let's dig in.
I just wanted to mention, because this is something that I found particularly interesting about your family tree, was the number of descendants that you have listed on the Dawes rolls. I was able to identify about 25 of your ancestors on the rolls, and we can get into that uncertainty a little bit later, but at 25, I would estimate the average Cherokee today likely has fewer than 10 ancestors on the Dawes rolls, so I thought that was really amazing. We were able to trace back the lineage on both your paternal and maternal sides to the late 1700s in the old Cherokee Nation, or Cherokee Nation East, and your family is just rich with Cherokee history. But today I did want to focus on a few key branches of the tree. I wanted to really focus on the name Teehee. The earliest use of Teehee that we found was for a Charles Teehee, which would be your great-great-great-great-great-grandfather. Charles was born in the old Cherokee Nation in what is now the state of Georgia around 1810, and he was the son of Jack Bearpaw and Chawa Yuka. And I was unable to find a documented reason for the change from Bearpaw to Teehee, but that is where we noticed that change occur. I was able to locate the name of a Charlie Teehee on the muster roll for the Peter Hildebrand detachment of the Trail of Tears. I wasn't able to identify if that was specifically the Charles that we are talking about, but there was also a Charlie Teehee listed on the 1835 pre-removal census for Cass County, Georgia. Do you know anything about your ancestors' origins?
I know that I have at least 6 direct ancestors who were on the 1835 census, and I've actually visited Blythe's Ferry in the walls where their names are etched in it. I don't know a lot of the details, and so and this makes sense to me. You know, my parents are Cherokee first language speakers, and I'm blessed to still have them today. I realize that I'm blessed to have such a deep-rooted history in being Cherokee.
That is so wonderful. Charles Teehee from Cass County, Georgia, married Margaret Proctor, and they actually had several children, but I really want to focus on 3 in particular, because this led to several interesting branches in your family tree. There's Lydia, your great-great-great-great-grandmother, Stephen, and John Bearpaw, who were her brothers. So Lydia married William Wirt Duncan, who is the son of a known old settler who moved to Indian Territory in 1834. And so this is going into your Duncan side of the family. Stephen's son was Houston Benj Teehee. Houston Benj Teehee served as the Register for the United States Treasury from 1915 to 1919, as well as holding several state-level positions following statehood and positions within Cherokee Nation. According to his biography on Oklahoma Senate's website, it is believed that he signed his name to documents representing more money than ever came under the control of any one person in the history of the world, which I thought was truly amazing. And his portrait hangs in the Oklahoma Senate building in Oklahoma City as part of its official art collection. This would make Houston Benj Teehee your first cousin 4 times removed. Do you know anything about your connection to Houston Teehee?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, in this exhibit, I loaned currency signed by Houston B. Teehee. I actually collect it, and I brought some with me today, just a couple of currencies that he signed. He signed the 1916 to 1918 series of currency. What I find remarkable about that is that he was signing currency in a series of years that occurred before Congress passed and enacted the Indian Citizenship Act of 1924. And so the fact that Indians in the United States, as a general matter, were not bestowed U.S. citizenship, my direct descendant, my direct ancestor, signed currency prior to that year. It's truly remarkable to have that in the family and that history in the family. And I have pictures. He served in the state legislature in the early 1900s, and just after Oklahoma became a state. And so he was so young. And so there are pictures of him when he was young, hanging in the Capitol beyond that portrait, because they have all of the legislators who actually served since the beginning of the legislature. And so to see his picture at such a young age was truly remarkable.
Wow, that's quite a legacy.
Yeah, it is.
Shifting to John Bearpaw Teehee, I wanted to mention your connection to him because his great-grandson, Charlie Mankiller, was the father of Wilma Mankiller. Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Wilma Mankiller was our tribe's only elected female chief to date. She served as Principal Chief from 1985 to 1995, and today is one of our tribe's most widely known citizens. And she is your fourth cousin, one time removed. But I also understand with your connection to Lucy Mankiller that there's actually two sides of your family that connect back to the Mankiller family.
I believe we have another situation of double cousins. My mother, Polly Springwater Teehee, her grandmother was Lucy Mankiller. And so Wilma and my mom knew of that connection, but they didn't quite know how they were related or how closely they were related. Wilma passed away before knowing what the connection was. And then when I had traced the relationship with Wilma and Lucy Mankiller, and had a chart created showing that we were fourth cousins, I would be one time removed on my mom's side, I did not realize at the time that I had another connection on the Teehee side of my family. So that's wonderful to see. And I had, before Gina Olaya passed away, I had shared with her that chart before, because we had also talked about that a little bit. And so Wilma has been such an influence, a strong female influence on my life. It's such a blessing to have that connection now on both sides of the family.
Going back to Charles Teehee and Margaret Proctor, what a legacy. Because three of their children, if you follow those lines, you get three just amazing, inspirational Cherokee leaders. I'd like to shift now to discussing your maternal side. Your mother's maiden name is Springwater, and we were able to trace her lineage back to the Old Nation as well. Your ancestors on this side originated in several parts of the old Cherokee Nation, not just within what is now the state of Georgia, but also what is now the states of Tennessee and North Carolina. Your great-great-grandmother, Nancy Seabolt, was born in 1857 in Indian Territory, and she was also an original Dawes enrollee. I've chosen to focus on Miss Seabolt because her lineage is particularly interesting and highlights a hurdle that we sometimes, come across whenever we're doing genealogical research. Cherokees are one of the most highly documented tribes in history. We have 200 years of recorded and written history, but sometimes we still get more questions than answers when we're doing research. So while researching Nancy Seabolt, our team actually identified three possibilities as to who her father was. When going back this far, a lot of our knowledge comes from the testimonies that were taken during the Dawes application process or the applications that were completed for the Eastern Cherokee rolls. And sometimes those applications contradict each other. According to Nancy's own testimony, she did not know who her father was, that he had passed away, long before she was aware. However, according to her husband's testimony, her father was O.C. Harlan. We did identify three possibilities: John Brown O.C. Harlan, Isaac Proctor, and a gentleman by the name of Seabolt. I wasn't able to identify a first name for him. Now, there is evidence pointing in each one of these directions, which again highlights one of the issues we sometimes face with genealogical research. But if Nancy's father was in fact O.C. Harlan, as her husband claimed, this would make you a direct lineal descendant of Nancy Ward. And Nancy Ward is well known today as a leader during her time, a beloved woman, a diplomat, and she played such a big role during a very pivotal point in our history, including during the negotiations for the Treaty of Hopewell. And I was just wondering, do you know anything about that connection?
I, don't know a lot about that connection. I went on this journey of trying to find out who was Nancy Seabolt. She's the only Seabolt, as far as I can tell, in my family history, which you also confirmed today. And so I thought maybe she, was the reason why my mom has an Aunt Nancy, why we have Nancys who are cousins. And it would make sense if, I'm a direct, descendant of Nancy Ward to have so many Nancys. Of course, I'd also heard that, her father was O.C. Harlan. Because we are so documented, there's other evidence to suggest maybe not. I think that also tells you too about the sign of the times too, how some people recorded their responses and such. But I, would be blessed if I do have that direct link, but I know that there is some question whether or not that's the case. We have family lore also. I always like to know whether or not this matches, these records match the lore. Right. For example, my last name Teehee, one of the things that I wanted to find out, which I was never able to confirm, but my dad had always been told that our last name Teehee was really Teehee. And so on the Dawes rolls, he had been told the phonetic spelling was Teehee, but in that it might have actually also been killer because Teehee means killer. But we couldn't find any evidence of that. And so my dad, his feelings were hurt because he thought this was something he'd always been told. And so I said, well, it doesn't make it untrue. It's just not documented if it is true. Yeah, we can hold on to those stories.
Well, while doing this research, I did find pension records for Stephen Teehee. He was a Civil War veteran, and the application said Stephen Teehee or Stephen Killer.
Okay.
So there may be some truth to that.
There you go. Oh, I love this story. I can't wait for my dad to see this part. that would make sense. Yes. That somebody would, phonetically spell Teehee and know that was killer in English. Okay. I'm actually amazed at how much is actually there about my family because I do come from a long line of a bunch of full-bloods and Cherokee names that I always thought were not traceable. And to be able to find that, and to trace it, and to find that one factoid, especially my dad's going to be over the moon when he hears about that.
Well, I've got to say, just in going through the records, both what we have printed in the books and then also the other records online that I was able to locate, I'm a little jealous because, your family really filled out their applications. And whenever I'm looking into my family history, they're very short answers with little information. So you have a wealth of information to go through.
I love it. Thank you so much, Krystan. This has been a truly wonderful experience for me. I've had a long-standing interest in the history of both my mom and my dad. And I just cherish them so much. And I want them to know definitively where they come from. This has been a wonderful experience.
Thank you again for joining us for our Cherokee family. We're at the Cherokee National History Museum, where until June 1st, you can actually visit an exhibit that is featuring our Cherokee Nation Delegate to Congress, Kim Teehee. This has been an honor for me to explore your history with you.